Hey fellas, welcome back to part 4 of the F-105G build. In this exciting episode, I'll be painting both the D and the G model in SCA camo. And I'm using Tamiya paints. A lot of people, they have their choice in paints. I just like the way Tamiya sprays. I'm used to it. It's what I started off with. They can be a little fragile, and they don't come in a wide range of colors. So I did have to mix up the colors for this particular camo scheme. This isn't like an all-encompassing video. It took me probably 2.5 days to paint, to get both of them done. And it was a lot of, painting it, shading it, coming back, redoing some stuff, just to where I got it to where I wanted it. So that would have been a lot of filming of useless stuff and me going over and redoing some things. So I just give you an idea of how I go about doing it. I do show you how I put paint the tail letters on. It's with my Cricut. It's a vinyl cutter. There's a couple other ones out there, and there are some limitations to it, but I show you how I make masks to paint my tail letters. There's also a new thing that I used on this one, which I'm really excited about. Edward came out with some photo-etched masks for stenciling, like the no-step stencils. And I used those, and I think they turned out really good, and I show you how those work. So I hope you enjoy this episode, and let's get on with the video. Okay, I've got my colors mixed up and ready to go. I did these way ahead of time, but got them all mixed up, and they look pretty good. I am freehanding this, but because these are specific planes that I'm doing, and I used some reference pics and tried to get the camouflage as close as possible. So I took colored pencils and I drew out the camouflage in the specific colors, which will aid me when I go ahead and start throwing paint at it. So I got some brown and some dark green and some light green. So I've got those all marked, and I'll start putting down a coat of each, and then I'll probably come back afterwards and start fading with a lighter shade. And so that's how I'm going to start. Okay, I've got it roughed in, and when I say roughed in, it is kind of rough. I've got this one over here done too. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my post shading. It's kind of splotchy, and that's okay because I'm going to go in with some lighter shades. So let's take a look at how I'm doing this. Okay, so let's take a look, and I'm going to use these horizontal stabilizers to kind of show you how I'm shading these. Now I've got medium green, and I'm going to go ahead and start with this. And what I've done is I've lightened this and thinned it out with yellow and a lot of thinner. So let's take a look at, hopefully my airbrush will reach over here. Now I'm going to have to move my compressor a bit. So I'm just going to go around and shade this. I'm going to turn my air pressure down because I really have this thinned out. Okay, I've got my fine airbrush. So I'm just going to come in here and I'm just going to start my shading. And I'm just going slow, kind of splotching it in. And it's real thin, so that's also going to help me not go overboard. And if I do, I can always come back with the original color and blend it in. It's no big deal. I'm going to try to get right to the edge of that line between the medium green and the dark green. Now with the other colors, with the tan, ooh, kind of got a little heavy there. And if you make a mistake, you can always go back and fix it. Now I'm doing this with the yellow because a lot of times I'll lighten the green with yellow. I think it's just a little bit better than white. Now I can come in with white if I want and shade some areas as well. So that's kind of the look that we're going for. And you can see there's a big difference in what it was before. Now I'm gonna play with this and I'll continually play with it and shade and maybe go over some spots and take away some spots. It's just, I kind of do it as I go. And along the leading edge here, I'm going to spray a little bit more. Now, with the darker green, I'm going to shade that with, or lighten that with probably buff or deck tan. And with the sand color, I'm going to use white. And I'm just going to go through and do this throughout the plane. I'll tidy up my edges, and it's just going to take a little bit of work, but I'll get it done. Got all my shading done so far. Now, I'm just going to sit back and come and look at this a little bit later to see if it's exactly what I want. And if I'm happy with it, then I will start doing the light gray on the bottom. And that's going to require a little bit of masking just for overspray, but I am going to freehand that as well. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell at this stage whether or not how the paint's going to look, just because you've got the canopies all covered. There's no black on the nose. The decals aren't on. Usually the plane really changes form once you get decals on it. So you kind of got to judge based on your experience what it's going to look like. And so I'm just going to take a little break and come back and look at it again. And if it's good, I'll go ahead and continue painting. If not, then I'll just play with it a little bit more. But that's what she looks like. Something really cool that I am trying out for the first time on camera are these Edward pre-cut painting masks, and they're real thin photo etch. I always have a hard time getting the no step and all these small little stencils to stick, and I usually get silvering on them, and I'm sure you've probably had the same problem. Well, with these, you can cut them out and just apparently put them on here, tape them on, and then spray it. So that's what we're gonna do. I even did one on a curved surface on this fuel tank to see how it works. They're real thin and they seem to bend really well. Now, I, again, have never tried this before, but we're gonna see how it goes. Now, I got my tiny airbrush, so I don't have to mask off everything. Hopefully I got this thick enough. Let's see how this looks. Pretty cool, man. Much better than decals. Now they have these in like different ones that I found, like, ooh, that one's kind of crooked. Oh well. And that's one of the things I noticed when I put these on, is trying to get them lined up and straight. But it doesn't look too bad. The camera will focus in on that. Other than that one being kind of crooked, it's pretty cool. Let's see how it does on this curved surface here. I'm shooting at a low air pressure, and I'm using isopropyl alcohol as my thinner, and I'm shooting Tamiya flat black. So I'm spraying it on somewhat dry. I found when you try to shoot through stencils, if you got it too wet, you're going to get runs. And the alcohol allows it to dry really fast. This is a little bit of work at the beginning, but you don't have to work to try to get the decals down and get the silvering out of them. So in the long run, this is pretty sweet. No step, perfect. I like that. That's pretty darn sweet, guys. All right, I'm gonna get on to painting these and catch you in a bit. What I'm doing now is painting the tail letters. And how I'm doing this, if you haven't seen any of my other videos, I think I've done a couple of these where I've shown you kind of how I do this on video, but we'll do it again. And I like to do this, especially with the tail letters, because it's fairly easy to do with my Cricut, my vinyl cutter. But if you don't, typically the decals have a lot of carrier film, and you got to cut all that. And if you don't, then I don't know. It's just it's a lot easier to, in the long run, to do it this way. So I'm putting the tail letters on the left side. I'm sorry, the right side. So in order to get my line, I know that the numbers go right along the bottom here. So I'm going to get a piece of tape to line this up where they should go. That's kind of a tight fit. Okay. Now what I've done with my Cricut is I've see if we can find the other number here. There we go. Basically what I do is I get the number cut out on my vinyl cutter, and then I put transfer tape down, and I lift up the actual numbers, and then I lift up the mask. So now what I do is I just take my numbers and then I line them up. Let's see where they go. Look at my sheet. So then I'll take this up. And I will line this up as best I can. Okay. And there's a limit to how small my vinyl cutter will cut. This Tamiya sticker, which is what I'm using as my masking. And you can get that pretty much anywhere. I like it the best just because it sticks really well. I have used Oramask, but I found that that just doesn't stick very well. Now, when I say that there's a limit, these letters right here are pretty much at the stretching it to what my vinyl cutter will cut. So it does kind of like tear. especially the middle of this A. So I'll come along with my X-Acto blade and make sure that that's cut. And if not, you know, I can cut a piece and stick it in there. Now what I'll do is I will take the actual mask and I will lift this up. I don't need this anymore. So now I will take my mask. Let's see if we can. And you almost got to get this right the very first time. And this is really difficult to work around the camera, but I thought I would show you how I do it. Okay. Might have cut off just a little bit. Once I stick this on, it's really hard to maneuver it. Okay, my 6 and 2 might be off a little bit, so I may have to try to adjust it. And then I will just peel off my transfer tape. Set this aside. Okay, yeah, my 6 and 2 is off. So let's lift up this A and see if I need to cut any more of that center. Nope. This can be fairly delicate when you get this small. The big letters aren't really a problem. Let's fix this. So that if I were just to use the mask and put it on there, it's a little more difficult to get the letters and numbers exactly where you want them. So if I put the numbers down first, it's just visually a lot easier to get them where you want them, and then you can just align the mask over top. This may seem like a lot of work, and it'd be easier just to put the decals down, but fighting with getting the silvering out of the decals and getting them to lay down in the panel lines is a lot more difficult in the long run than doing this work ahead of time. Now, a lot of times I'll paint the stars and bars, but the stars and bars on this one are really small, and they're the post-World War II ones with the red line. So there's a little bit more detail in them, and I don't think the carrier film on the stars and bars on the decal sheets, I don't think there's very much carrier film, so that's not going to be that big of an issue. I'll just need to get them to settle down in the panel lines, but with them being so small, I think it'll be probably better just to use the decals for that. Okay. I'll make sure this is nice and burnished. And that's pretty much how I do it. Now I'll do the same thing with the letters. I'll get them aligned and put them where they're supposed to be. And get them painted on. I'll flash up some pictures. And after I get these painted, I'll be done with all the paint. I'll show you pictures of what they look like with just the paint, and then I'm going to get to decaling and weathering. I've moved these out on the pool table so you can get a better look at them. I've got a clear coat on it, so it does appear a little bit darker than what it actually is. For some reason, the clear coat does that. You can see all the shading that I've done. Again, I shaded the tan color with a white and the dark green with a deck tan, I believe. So there it is. I've got all my tail numbers painted on. This one gave me a real problem. I got it on crooked, so I repainted and put the stencil back on, and I started peeling paint, and I had to go in and touch up. But it's I think it's going to be a lot easier, even with that, a lot easier to do that than try to get all those decals to suck down in the crevices and not get any silvering. So pretty happy with how those turned out. I've got my nose step on the camera will focus. My nose step on the wings where they're supposed to go, and I am ready to get some decaling on. I'll probably let the clear coat dry. I put it on last night, but I will probably let it dry. I usually like to wait at least 24 hours before I start putting decals on. Sometimes I do it a little bit sooner, but I just found that works the best. Once I get the decals on, then I'll do all my other weathering. I may even come in with an airbrush and do some more stuff on the bottom, as I didn't do any type of pre-shading on the bottom. I'll hit it with some washes. Then I will throw a flat coat on it and then start using some oil paints. And at that point I may decide to lighten some areas. We'll see. We'll kind of see how it goes. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I will catch you on the next video.